Frank Luntz doesn't do issues. He does language around issues. He figures out what words will best sell an issue. And he polls them, and he tests them, and he focus groups them, and he comes up issue by issue with how to talk about it and how not to talk about it.
If the language works, language works.
No, it's just amazing.
Luntz has sold his corporate and political clients the idea that a few carefully chosen words can make all the difference. But he's not just looking for any words. Luntz's quarry are those words that grab our guts and move us to act on an emotional level.
It's amazing that those two words,
Constantly.
almost everything that we do, come up at the top.
So why do you think that companies don't use them enough?
I don't know.
80% of our life is emotion, and only 20% is intellect. I am much more interested in how you feel than how you think. How you think is on the outside. How you feel is on the inside. So that's what I need to understand. You're going to use these to register whether you agree or disagree, whether you believe or disbelieve. The dials go from 0 to 100.
On one hand, you have wind, which has no fossil fuels associated with it. And just
To get at his subjects' gut feelings, Luntz has them register their moment-by-moment responses to a speech by a power company executive. Republicans are on the red line and Democrats on the green.
technology,
Luntz is watching for both sides to meet in an emotional crescendo.
change fuels, there would be a number of things that are available.
Climbing, changing fuels.
Phase out of older, less efficient plants, and they would be replaced.
Bingo, look, phasing out of older official plants. He's now up into the mid to upper 70s with that. You're replacing the bad with the good. It's almost like in with the good air, out with the bad. That might be an analogy that we might want to try instead of the automobile analogy. This is going to work. Watch, this will work.
Technology such as hydroelectric power, wind energy, geothermal energy, nuclear energy.
Check it, I told you. The words work. The words apply to the policy. This is how we're going to sell it.
California utilize output-based standards.
Look at this. Hold it. Stop.
By the end of his session, Luntz thinks he's found the language his client can use to create a groundswell of public support.
I'll be able to walk to this electricity company on Monday and be able to say to them, your policy makes sense, and here's the language to explain it. That was the eureka moment when I watched people nod their heads. I watched them look to each other, and they were willing at this point to fight for this position.
But watching Luntz work, I couldn't help wondering, do the words he's found help the public see the issue more clearly, or do they disguise it? Is Luntz listening to us so his clients can give us what we want, or so we can figure out how to make us want what they have to sell?
You're ducking the question. You're ducking the reality test.
This is a guy who is merchandising ideas and merchandising a movement and merchandising a political party. And in many instances, the words that he says are the ones that resonate, are ones that obscure to some extent the issue.
The right name makes the policy sell better. It's just like putting a name on a bar of soap or any other commercial product. It matters what you name things.
Journalist Nicholas Lemon wrote a profile of Luntz in the New Yorker magazine called The Word Lab. He described how Luntz once turned public opinion simply by replacing the name estate tax with the more emotionally charged death tax.
As far as I can tell, in the entire developed world, every single country had an estate tax, and it was completely uncontroversial all over the world. And it is clearly the case that this construction, this rhetorical construction of calling it the death tax, took it from the realm of something everybody was for and in a just unquestioned way into something that most people seem to be against and is on its way to being eliminated.
Look, for years, political people and lawyers, who, by the way, are the worst communicators, used the phrase estate tax. And for years, they couldn't eliminate it, but the public wouldn't support it because the word estate sounds wealthy. Someone like me comes around and realizes that it's not an estate tax, it's a death tax because you're taxed at death. And suddenly, something that isn't viable achieves the support of 75% of the American people. It's the same tax, but nobody really knows what an estate is. But they certainly know what it means to be taxed when you die. I'd argue that is a clarification. That's not an obfuscation.
Luntz has admonished Republican politicians to talk about tax relief instead of tax cuts, and to replace the war in Iraq with the war on terror. He once told his party to speak of climate change, not global warming.
What is the difference? It is climate change. Some people call it global warming, some people call it climate change. What is the difference?
It apparently made enough difference to Republicans that they began to use climate change almost exclusively.
Cause climate change.
The President's Global Climate Change Initiative.
Climate change research.
And we must address the issue of global climate change.
I don't argue with you that words can sometimes be used to confuse.
The Axiom Corporation of Little Rock, Arkansas is one of the biggest companies you've never heard of. Somewhere in these acres of blinking computers is carefully guarded data about you. Not just your name, address, and phone number, but probably also the catalogs you get, the cars you've bought, and maybe even what shoes you wear, and whether you like dogs or cats. Axiom's information is culled from census data and tax records, those product surveys you answered, and customer records supplied by corporations and credit card companies that are Axiom clients. Axiom sifts all this data to produce lists of target consumers for their clients.
If you're a company, a bank, a retailer, what you would do is say you want left-handed people of a certain ethnic group, and they're going to be able to do a list for you. You can get marketing lists of Hispanics who make between $20,000 and $40,000 who are U.S. citizens. You can get marketing lists of people who suffer from incontinence and have bought those kinds of products in the pharmacy. You can get all sorts of things that can be very narrow.
Axiom divides all consumers into one of 70 different types they call life stage segments, encompassing everything from what hobbies you have to what products you buy, where you live to what you believe in.
Instead of being Americans, we're sliced into 70 demographic groups. We might be sliced into hundreds of subcategories under that. And then the worry is that we don't share anything as a people.
I don't think if I blink, it keeps on the screen in the back.
The result is living in a society where people, rather than having an idea of the common good, increasingly see their own personal well-being or their own communities' or ethnicities' well-being as the essential issue of democracy.
Sorted and sifted, we slip easily into our demographic tribes, each of us focused on our own list of needs and desires, which, after all, is exactly the way marketers want it.